Here's what I don't want to see you doing on Instagram. Actually, there are a few things. Instagram is a platform that should be fun. It's an important one for many marketers. Somehow we found ourselves in a place where it can actually be a source of stress as you're building your brand. Don't worry, I'm going to walk through 6 tips that are really outdated and unnecessary nowadays and not things that you should be doing. Hopefully learning these will alleviate some stress and pressure on you. Stay with me. I'm Pallen, a brand strategist. Welcome to my channel where I promise practical advice to build your brand. Today I'm going to walk through what not to do on Instagram. These are tips that may have existed back in the day, but as the platform itself has evolved, they no longer apply, in my opinion. I'll jump between my phone and my computer to point out some of these outdated tips and what you can do instead to build your brand effectively on this platform. Let's get started. Let's start a little more obvious, so I had to scroll back a little while for this one, but when I click this old feed post, have a look at the caption. Do you see those dots? Remember the old days where we actually had to add dots, periods, to separate out your caption? Good news, you no longer have to do this, so if this is something you still do, please cut it out. You don't need it. Instagram finally caught up with the rest of us and allowed us to actually just have paragraph breaks. So you actually don't need any of these. We can just leave a simple space. This, by the way, we used to not be able to do this, but now you can. I'll click done and you'll see that it will retain the spacing. It didn't used to, but now it does, so you don't need periods. Next, jumping back over to the olden days of my feed, this would be outdated tip number 2, that you need to have an absolutely perfect Instagram grid, okay? Now, some people, I guess if you're a photographer, you can maintain this, but even me, as someone who posts a mix of media, photos and graphic elements, I found it really paralyzing to try and just keep the same look and feel, right? And so even though this looks good and I was matching the greens between photos and graphic elements, it became really challenging to maintain. So if I scroll all the way forward to my feed now, you'll see it doesn't look quite as good, but that's okay because I post more often and it's a resource for people. And even though my feed doesn't look perfect, I do thrive with templates, okay? So I templatize my feed, which means every 6 posts or so, I'll post this. Not so, I mean exactly every 6 posts, okay? And then you'll also see this style I repeat. And this enables me to quickly decide what my next post should look like. Always trying to post a nice variety, right? So you're seeing here, certainly my brand's still showing up and still lots to look at, and it, it's interesting, but it's not preventing me by, being paralyzed by perfection. It's not preventing me from posting, and I find that this really helps me. So don't aim for perfection. You can still aim for some similar design elements, groups, so it looks and feels nice, but it's way more important to post consistently than it is to have a perfect looking feed. Let's keep going. Outdated advice, number 3, okay? This, I'm gonna hop over to my following, or I could go to my followers. What you definitely don't wanna do is the follow-unfollow method. This is super old school and super, super lame. So let's say, for example, I find someone like Lauren on my Instagram. If I was to go to her followers, and I could click through here and just follow all of these people, the idea, and it's kind of sketchy. The idea is that it would get their attention that I'm following them. And then once they follow me, I would unfollow them. It's just not a good look on Instagram nowadays. It really isn't. And it's also not going to help you in the long run, because you want people to want to follow you based on your content, not based on them following you. It's just not going to attract a super high quality follower. So definitely cut that out. If you are still unfollowing in 2000 and almost 23, cut it out. You do not need that. You need to focus that energy on creating good content instead, so people are enticed to follow you and stay around. Okay, let's keep going. We're gonna actually go to settings for this next one. Now this has a stipulation, but my outdated advice for this, if you're trying to grow your audience, you're trying to build your business online, is to create a private profile. Your profile should not be private nowadays. We've seen this with meme accounts. We've seen this with big creators that actually make their accounts private so that you have to follow them to be able to see their content. Let's say, for example, a friend shares a meme. The idea for a while was that these meme accounts would go to private and basically make you follow them to see the content. And that's just super old school now. And it's just like, it's just not sustainable. It's just not something I would do as a creator. So what you want to do here is, again, if you're a business owner, you're trying to grow your profile, you would go under settings, you would click privacy right here. If your account is set to private, I would make it public. Again, stipulation, asterisk, if you're trying to grow your business or your brand. I understand if you use Instagram for personal to keep in touch with friends, you're trying to hide from your boss or from work, you want some privacy, fine, keep it private. But as a business owner, as someone building a brand, you should not have your account private. That is outdated advice and outdated practice. Let's keep moving along. A few more tips for you. And this one is going to be related to sharing content, particularly feed posts or reels to your stories. So that's how you would do it. You would click that little airplane sign, give it a moment to load. And what this is gonna, where I'm going with this is if you were to actually cover this up. So let's say square. Let's find a GIF or a GIF, depending on how you pronounce it. There's this kind of old school method where you would just put your reel like this, right? And you would cover it up like this. And you might say, click here to watch. And the idea is they can hear it, but they can't see it. And what the goal would be to get them over to watch the full reel, and then it would count as a view. They would be able to see the full thing. They would be there to be able to comment. But this is just not, this approach is really just kind of annoying more than anything, this idea of covering up your content. There's nothing wrong with promoting your reel in your stories. My recommendation would be put a little bit of context. So I really love this platform, and I think you will too, right? I think you will too. So I could style this a little bit and give some context for what the post is, because again, not everyone is watching with sound, but you really, you just don't want to cover it up and then expect people to click over. It's just more annoying than anything, and that is definitely an outdated tip. This applies to posts and reels that you're sharing in your story. And while we're here, this would be my final outdated tip: adding hashtags to stories. You just don't need it, right? Instagram has adjusted. Here, let's just do an example. Content creator. Let's say that was a hashtag, one of many that I would want to shove in here. You don't need it. You don't need it in stories. You just don't need it. And what I see people do even more is then do a bunch of content creation or tools. Now, obviously, if you're posting this on your feed, that's a different story. You should definitely use hashtags. But to then ram a bunch of hashtags in your story, it's just not really going to take it anywhere. People don't really watch stories on hashtag accounts like they used to. Instagram kind of phased that out. So again, don't worry about cramming a bunch of stories. Instead, focus on I said stories, I meant hashtags. Focus more on context for what your content is in your story and get them engaging. You don't need hashtags. Instead, you've got these incredible engagement stickers that Instagram, even the simplest ones like this rating scale or this bop, you can put a little emoji and people can bop it. There's so many fun ways that people can engage with your stories. It's always a good idea to have engagement stickers in your stories because it tells Instagram that people are interested in what you're posting. They're engaging, they're playing along. That is going to likely lead to more people seeing your stories. Focus more on engagement stickers than hashtags in stories. They're just not really necessary. There you go. What not to do on Instagram. Hopefully I've given you some ideas on what to do. And on that topic, you should also check out my Instagram growth checklist. This outlines exactly what to do on Instagram to get more followers organically, breaking down the perfect hour spent on Instagram to grow. Linked in the description below, my way of saying thanks for hanging out with me today. If you've got any lingering questions, comment below. Let's keep the conversation going on down there. I respond to those personally. And if you enjoyed this video, give it a like. That helps others discover these videos, which we work hard to create for you. And subscribe for more of my videos on branding, positioning, building, and promoting your brand. Next, I'm sharing a few videos I think you'll be interested in. I'm Pallen. Thanks for watching, and those are coming up next.